The engineers who grow the fastest aren't always the smartest or the most experienced. They're actually the ones who ask the most important question: why? Why are we doing this? Why are we coding it in this manner? Why are we using this framework? They're always curious and want to know the deep down information. They want to be the one with all the knowledge. And that's the secret skill that gets you growing as an engineer. Hi, I'm Nayab. I've been working in corporate for 5 years and I've been an engineer for 2 of those. And I've worked my way up the career ladder to now being an engineer full time and working in this position as my main role. And what's gotten me here and what I attribute most of my success to in corporate is always being curious about why we're doing things. I've always been intrigued by business systems and how businesses are laid out, why they're doing certain things the way they are, and constantly asking questions to any person I come across and having curiosity about their role is what's helped me grow. So in this video, we're going to be talking about 6 things and 6 reasons why curiosity is the real superpower in growing and progressing in your career. The first reason that curiosity is the true superpower is because curiosity turns you from a doer into a thinker. And although the opposite is often really valued and people say you should always be taking action and thinking less and not overthinking things, actually when you start thinking about architecture and thinking about code, thinking about it in detail gives you progress. And when you're thinking about architecture and asking why we're doing certain things, why we're implementing certain things, it puts everything into this context. And often I found myself being one-tracked and very single-minded in terms of the solutions I was implementing. And so when I found myself thinking, why am I actually doing this? Where is this being implemented? It turned into this black hole. It turned this black hole into an actual world. It turns it into the earth. And I was able to put things into context and logically think about problems as well and propose solutions which are actually effective instead of proposing with limited knowledge, because I'm just a junior at the end of the day. I don't know how the whole business is working, but when I'm asking why, I'm able to get this bigger picture into my head. I'm able to think clearly as well, and having the ability to put things into context, not just for yourself, but in order to explain to the next people that are working, in order to put it into your documentation. It's what accelerates you. It's what helps you get recognized and hold yourself accountable to the progress you're making, not just individually, but in the organization and how you're helping the organization to move forward as well. And when you're constantly curious about these things and you get to learn the context behind the things you're doing, the code you're writing, it helps you understand the architecture, not just the individual lines of code that you have with the repositories that you're working with. And I think as an engineer, it's very common that we have a handful of repositories that we work with. I personally work with around 8 to 10 repositories day in, day out. And because of that, I know those repositories really well. But sometimes I lose sight of how they're playing into the larger architecture of the organization, because 8 repositories, 10 repositories, 2 years in, you get used to it. It becomes like light work. It's just in the back of your mind. You can navigate them without thought. Like if someone needs a piece of information, it takes me 30 seconds to go into a certain repository and know it's sitting there. But now when I'm thinking about why I'm implementing things in a certain way, I'm also asking why have they been implemented already in a certain way, not just with my code, but why they exist as they are. And if you have people who've been working in the organization long term, they'll have familiarity with this and they'll be able to tell you why it is the way it is. And that builds momentum in knowing the greater architecture. I don't think there's any such person who knows the complete architecture of an organization. Even the head of technology at my company, he's often said, like, I understand what I do, but you can't expect me to be good at everything. I'm just good at what I do. And that's what I take on as well. That was the advice I took on in my internship. I just need to get good at what I do. But to get good at what I do, I need to have a bigger image and I need to know how the whole thing is operating. So I'm not putting in different components and different cogs in place which aren't necessary, and they're actually going to hinder the process that's already flowing. And so understanding the architecture is a superpower in being able to make contributions for future systems that might be put into place or future solutions that you're proposing. And by being curious about why things are the way they are, you can actually put yourself in a position to propose these solutions. And when you're able to propose these solutions, you realize that curiosity is what brings design and brings initiative into these designs, and you're able to improve the designs as a result of being curious. When you understand the architecture that your company is implementing, you can therefore propose better solutions, and you can even rewrite projects. And I've seen this in my time that I've been here, that my manager joined at a similar time to when I was initially joining the organization, and he's rewrote many of the legacy projects, so to say, though they aren't really legacy, they're really modern, but they just weren't well written. And it's been his responsibility, and because he had that context and system design, and he's someone who's really curious about why things are the way they are, once he understood that a certain project was written for a certain purpose, but it was designed in a way which actually is not fit for that purpose anymore, he proposed different solutions, and he has been doing that continuously. And many of the engineers work on rewriting the legacy code and improving it and optimizing it. And I'm not in a position personally to be able to currently propose that we should rewrite a repository. There's no way. But it's definitely something I want to work towards. When I see him proposing it, or when I see the senior engineers saying that this should be written in this way, it's because they've been curious about why it was written like that and what it's actually intending to serve. It motivates me deep down, and it makes me want to get so proficient at knowing these systems, knowing the design, knowing the organization, that I can propose solutions like that in the future, hopefully one day. When they're discussing these meetings and when they're discussing these changes and that they want made, it's often in a meeting. When you're first starting out and you're in the office, you'll get pulled into a lot of these meetings, and one of the worst things is when you're just sat in a meeting and the meeting is just going in through one and out the other. But if you're curious, you can really turn it into a superpower by asking questions and being engaged in that meeting. And it turns meetings into a fun place and a free learning session. That's how I view all these meetings I used to get pulled into, that this is just a learning session and it might be useful, it might not. And the best part is that one of the meetings that I was in my second week starting, although at that time that meeting just seemed like 30 minutes wasted or 30 minutes spent learning something I wouldn't use, actually 2 years later I'm working on a project which is directly relevant to that meeting that happened 2 years ago. And I'm able to take what I had from those notes 2 years ago that I made from that meeting and bring it in now into this project. And it's absolutely fascinating that something so little and something I ignored at the time came in 2 years later. And it just shows you that if you're curious and you ask the right questions, that meeting I stayed engaged in it and I was able to recall what happened in that meeting. And also being curious in the meeting when the seniors are presenting something, I tend to think of things from a business perspective rather than a technical challenge perspective. But when I'm actually in my day-to-day role, I have to bring those both together. So sometimes if I'm in a technical meeting and there are some business people there, I try to ask some business related question to put things into context for them and for myself as well. It just helps me understand better and implement things better. And so being curious makes meetings less of a chore, stops them from dragging, especially things like stand-ups that you have every day. If you're actually curious and you have that thing on what is someone working on, what is X person working on this day and how are they using it in the business, maybe you can just drop them a Teams message and it's going to build you these relationships. It brings me up to my next point, that being curious forms good relationships with people in your workplace and helps you gain good mentorship as well. I always find myself in positions where I'm being mentored and I'm so lucky to have that. But it's also because I work with people who are so willing and open to share their knowledge with me. And it almost always starts when I ask, why have you done this way? Especially if it's like a PR and they want a review on it and I'm like, why have you implemented this method like this? That is for me a learning point, because why have they coded it like that? I don't know. And I just want to learn. But knowing that, and when they answer it, I'm getting mentored and I'm getting a learning session, and it just accelerates my growth and understanding of the organization. Especially when I was first starting out and I was trying to get all these things implemented and learn as much as I could, the best thing was always directly asking people and talking to them. Google is not as helpful as the people in your organization. Because these people are so helpful in your organization, and by being curious and having interest in what other people are doing, is how curiosity is the short to accelerating your growth. And I've personally experienced this, because going from 5 years from a telephone agent to an engineer, I've personally experienced it myself. And if you're curious and you want to genuinely learn more and are interested in what you're doing, you're going to progress nevertheless. There's nothing stopping you, and people are going to help you move forward as well. People like others who are interested in what they're doing. And if you're curious, you obviously have that natural interest and that dopamine release happening when you're learning things and rewiring your brain. You have a lot of neuroplasticity. You're growing and you're making those connections in your brain and connecting dots everywhere you go. And you're going to be growing as a result of that. And it just future-proofs your career. If you're curious, you're going to keep learning and growing in some capacity. You'll never be stagnant at any point, and therefore you have a career that's constantly moving as well. If there's one thing that has genuinely changed my career, it has been being curious about what other people are doing, how they're doing it, and why they're doing it. And I think everyone can benefit from taking an interest in others, just as we'd like people to be interested in us and what we're doing and the code we're implementing. It's equally as important to be interested in what they're doing, and there's no better way to than just asking questions simply. Everyone's there to help you. And so if you like this video, comment down below what's one thing you've done this week to stay curious about something that you're interested in, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay tuned.